Hi everybody, it's Steve from Scan Pro Audio here, and I'm with Stu Merry, who's our guitar tech here. He makes sure all the guitars leave here in fine fettle. He's been a long-time companion of mine. He's been my tech for a long time. And we're going to have a chat about all things distortion and overdrive and fuzz. There's a million videos out there that describe what each one of them does and how different they are or whatever. So we're not going to do that, but we're just going to talk about our experience of them and what pedals we think do a great job and what pedals are available here from Scan that they'll get you covered on that. But I was going to start just by saying, Stu, that you are one of a few people that I've met who can actually conjure some really very cool tones from whatever it seems, amps or whatever. Whenever I've seen you, it doesn't matter what kind of amp it is or what kind of pedal, you'll grab it and you'll get a tone from it. And it's a bit of a dark art, that, isn't it? There's a lot of people can't do it.
No, strangely no. And I can make plenty of mistakes like the rest of them. But yeah, for a lot of people, I've seen over the years so many guys who are great guitar players with just really bad tone. Mm-hmm. In fact, I've actually known techs on the road who were responsible for creating the guitar sounds, and I'm not going to drop any names, mm-hmm. but it is just one of those things that can get overthought, and people just, they assume they know what they're doing because you put it in the middle and off you go.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think another one is where people expect to buy a pedal and it's going to cure everything. And it's like, no, now you need to learn to drive the pedal properly,
yeah.
In relation to your rig. Because obviously it's a matter of everything feeding into everything else, isn't it? How that guitar reacts with that pedal reacts in front of that head or in front of that combo.
Yeah, and for a lot of players, it's how they play as well. Mm. A lot of people, they will buy the pedal of this particular guitar player, and it's like, if you're not picking like him, if you're not playing like him, you're going to have a different interaction, so you're not going to sound like him. So it's the constant tone chasing thing, yeah.
And I was thinking the other day, I was thinking about this, that one thing we don't have anymore really was we're filming this here at Scan in Bolton, and I grew up in Bolton. When I was young, when I was 16 or 17, there must have been on a Friday night at least 25 venues where you could hear live rock music in Bolton. Yeah. Pubs and halls and gunners, whatever. And in most of those, although it was particularly painful on certain nights, most of the guitar players had big stacks. They had big 4x12s and 100-watt heads or whatever. And that's kind of a lost art, having to grapple with one of those and get that under control.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the last time I was in a local gig when somebody had their JCM 800 on 10, and and as you say, it's learning to play at that kind of volume is a whole different kettle of fish as well.
Yeah, because I think when we're talking about the distortions and whatever, I think one of the bet noirs for you is the DS1. You've said before it's the one that you struggle with a little bit, and yet it's probably one of the most famous.
It is famous, and it is a fantastic pedal. But as you say, that's the buying the pedal to think you're buying the sound.
Yeah,
and back in my day, I remember when Satriani and Vi broke out, and of course no internet then, so you go searching, and of course, it's the DS1, and of course you buy a DS1 and put it into the front of a clean amp. It's not quite what you're expecting.
Quite the same as running something absolutely top notch and then putting it in front of it.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. So let's look then in terms of the various different sounds you can get from pedals. I suppose overdrive's probably the place to start, because in its purest form, what you're doing with an overdrive pedal is you're trying to push the signal of a relatively clean amp just towards the top of its headroom. You're trying to get it so that it's just breaking slightly.
It is. It's kind of based from I think what everybody understands is that point back in the day when the amp you're really cranking that amp just to the point where it does start to break up, and you just get that beautiful sound. Yeah. Whether it be the Stones, the Stevie Ray Vaughns and whatnot, and you're nowadays trying to achieve that a little bit lower volume.
Yeah, and I think we've got some examples here of some overdrive pedals that are fairly classic. We've got Luke in the driving seat. Do you want to pull a couple up we can have a look at? There we have probably the most famous overdrive pedal that's ever existed, the original Ibanez Tube Screamer.
Tube Screamer, yeah.
I mean, how many records must that have appeared on?
I would shudder to think probably most.
Yeah,
I think that appeared on records that didn't even have guitar on it. It's just one of those iconic pedals.
And I think I think JHS didn't JHS do a real modded version of it where he actually put the original circuits in and then mod circuits and then a whole bunch of other stuff.
He did. It is a fantastic pedal because you have over the years there were always different variants of the Tube Screamer. And of course, everybody says this one's better, and Stevie used this one, and such and such used this one. And it all went on. And he, of course, it's not rocket science in a sense that inside the pedals, there's just little component changes. So JHS are brilliant pedal manufacturers. And of course, he gave you all the Tube Screamers and a couple of the standard mods, all in one pedal. So a really useful piece of kit, that one.
So from our point of view, if we're recommending an Overdrive pedal, what do we like, Stu? What do we like?
My favourite out of all the Overdrive pedals that saves you digging around too much is the Nobles. The ODR one and, of course, the ODR Mini are just fantastic. This is one of these pedals, and I remember its first outing.
Yeah, they've been going a long time, haven't they? These Jerry Donohue's favourite pedal back in the day, Helicaster's day and things like that.
It was. I mean, I don't think there's a session player on the planet doesn't either own one or have them constantly glued to his board. I mean, Tim Pierce is a prime example. You know, one of probably the world's greatest session player, certainly currently, and it sits there. And Noble's just altered things. The thing about Overdrive, and sometimes you either like the particular sound of the Tube Screamer working with an amp that's really, really cooking, and it gives you that mid hit and it drops the bass out. The great thing about the Nobles that just makes it, for me, just that little bit more user-friendly was they took away that nasally mid. Right. Which is perfect, especially if you're trying to create a sound that sits in the mix. Yeah. There's enough in it that you will do everything from a very light, slight break-up. You can play rock through this pedal as well. But when they reissued it, they updated it just a little bit, so in under this battery cover there is the bass cut. And that was another thing that people sometimes, complain about. Depending on the amp, you want to be able to drop that low end out a little bit. So they have the bass cut version on this. But for me, that's just the epitome of a perfect Overdrive pedal.
Cool. The 6.
Cicalis. Yeah, that's an interesting one, and it does come to help people who can't just walk into a shop, buy 50, go home and think it's okay, I just use this for this. So here's a bit of a combination. So this pedal, and Chris is a fantastic pedal builder and a great designer. And with this, he has tried to integrate where you have overdrive, but it will also give you that distortion. Yeah. Again, it comes down to this when we were talking about the JHS pedal. There's loads of different little settings on a pedal such as this. The great thing about this is its tones are based around some very classic, of course, the king of tone tends to hide within this pedal. Also Marshall's Blues Breaker back in the day that John Mayer made them incredibly expensive second-hand. You will find those tones in here, but this is a great go-to pedal for people who need a bit of overdrive, but they also need a bit of the distortion. Yeah,
it's really pretty good value, and it's called fantastic. 6 because there are 6 independent sort of voice channels. Yeah. Cool. So overdrive-wise, it's the Nobles are great. There's no question about it. They've been going a long time. If you push the overdrive a little bit further, if you push up past the headroom, you start to get into distortion. Now, there's a thing that happens in real terms. Distortion is still a sine wave. It's not actually gone fully clipped and turned into a square wave yet. It's just that it's got a lot of overtone, a lot of harmonics, a lot of stuff going on there. And I think probably one of the most famous distortion pedals that we can think of is the DS1, which we mentioned before. And I think you said before, back in the day, Satriani, Vai, all these guys were running 100-watt rigs at top welly and then sticking this in front of it.
They were, yeah. I mean, a lot of the time I think there was a lot of misunderstanding. Certainly before the internet, you can see it all now. But they were probably doing the distortion virtually off and using it as a boost into a very, very cranked Marshall. And in fact, recently we saw that with Steve Rothery.
Yeah. Of course, we did a show with Steve here, a Scan sponsored show, and And it was a very fine tone. It was too.
It was a fantastic lead tone, and that was one of his pedals was missing. So we'd grabbed a DS1 for him, and when it came back off the board, and of course you see the classic setting, and it is exactly that. It's boosting, but you're not really using the distortion out of the pedal, just a tiny touch.
Yeah. Cool. So, in terms of, we've experimented with tons and tons of different distortion pedals in our time. What are we recommending out of the scan cupboard?
Distortion pedals, sort of endless. I have two top ones personally. Silvertech are not the most common pedal. They've been not the easiest thing to get hold of. In fact, there are only two of us currently in the country where you can actually buy them. But Silvertech have just, as far as I'm concerned, just cracked that distortion pedal. To give you complete versatility, and it kind of speaks for itself. And the guys like Pete Thorne and Sean Tubbs, all these guys absolutely love it. You can find it all over the internet where guys are using it instead of the old rack style preamps and all this kind of thing. But Silvertech are brilliant.
We've got a video that the Silvertech put out with who's this guy? This is Sam Smith's guitar player.
Louis Allen. Yeah,
he's a great player. Let's have a quick listen to that. So that was the Silvertech.
That was an N5.
N5.
Lou was using in that clip, yeah.
And again, I think distortion is one of those things that sounds like it's going to be, death metal and Norwegian nosebleed.
It can be
180 BPM.
Yeah, we'll
but actually, you can use it fairly succinctly, and you can use it, as a maybe just as I say a little bit further than overdrive, but also you can make a right racket with it.
Oh, yeah, fantastically so. Some of them. That brings us probably to the other pedal of the moment, and certainly one that's been talked about recently. And a lot of guys are using other rev pedals, and especially the G3.
Yeah, it is. I think we also have a clip of that. And
we do, and this clip sums up the G3.
Yeah, let's have a look at that. Look if we can.
Definitely. Killer pedal for that that heavy detune style. It stays very tight, this pedal is fantastic.
Excellent. So then finally, of the triumvirate, we have overdrive, we have distortion, and then we come to what was certainly the first effects pedal I ever bought, which was a fuzz pedal. Back in the day, we had you had things like the Big Muff Pie, which was probably the most well-known fuzz tone at the time. And I had a fuzz face, which of course Hendrix made reasonably famous. And it seemed when I was growing up, certainly you couldn't get away from that sort of Rolling Stones Satisfaction, and there was a Norman Greenbaum Spirit in the Sky. You could hear this relentless thing, and I think that sort of tone, we should say. That is a specific tone, where, I think we said earlier, that it's no longer a sine wave, it's clipped so that it's now a square wave, and it's in some ways, it's an unnatural guitar.
Yeah, it can sound crazy.
There's no way you can sort of say, well, I got that out of my amp by turning it up a little. It's a very, very specific sort of print, isn't it? So what do we like in terms of the of the Fuzz Pedals.
Of the Fuzz Pedals, yeah. I mean, Fuzz is very Marmite sometimes, and people don't quite get it. And some, I might be argued against on this, but you were talking earlier on about, back in our day, a cranked amplifier with a fuzz pedal in it works beautifully. And I think sometimes nowadays people are putting a fuzz pedal just into the practice amplifier in the corner going, well, this doesn't really work. It's kind of like,
Absolutely.
Call Hendrix back up if you could and just go, that his head's cranked pretty hard.
Yeah.
And that's when the fuzz really does work. But there are a few pedals that allow you to go down that route. Just that you have so much more control over a fuzz pedal now. As you know, it used to just be there were two knobs and usually one of them was broken off by your right boot. Yeah. The Zevex Fuzz Factory has been around now for probably a good 15 years, I think. And the Fuzz Factory is just, in my opinion, one of the best fuzz pedals you can grab a hold of. Mm-hmm. It just gives you an awful lot more control. You have they call it comp, but it's all to do with how the pedal reacts, how it compresses, what weird noises come out of it or not. You can sort of tailor it back, and it will work at a proper volume, if you like. Mm. And another one, of course, brings us back to Cicalis, which is another fantastic fuzz pedal, but also with the classic octave built in there. So you really can do
the Hendrix.
You can just go for that kind of Hendrix thing, and it's a cracking sounding unit. And we've tried this pedal with an awful lot of amplifiers, and it always played nice.
Yeah,
it never ever came out thinking, oh dear.
No.
It's a cracker.
I think we're going to finish with a video that I did for this when it first came out. But I hope our little discussion here has enlightened you maybe on a couple of points. Certainly these are what we think are the coolest sort of pedals in the genre at the moment. But come by the pedal store on our Pro Audio page and check them out. For now, I'll leave you with me and the Cicalis Experience pedal. Cheers.